Good afternoon, everyone. Our discussion for today is all about Marxist criticism. For our objectives, define Marxist criticism, understand the use of Marxist criticism, apply the use of Marxist criticism in a literary piece. But before we delve into the main topic, allow me to introduce you to the foundational figure of Marxist criticism, Karl Marx. So he was born on May 5, 1818 and died on March 14, 1883. So he was a German philosopher, economist, historian, sociologist, and political theorist. He studied law and philosophy at the University of Bonn and the University of Berlin. So his key works are the Communist Manifesto, co-authored with Friedrich Engels. This pamphlet is one of Marx's most famous works. So it outlines the principles of communism, critiques capitalism, and calls for the working class to overthrow the ruling class and Das Kapital. So it is his most important work where he delves into the workings of the capitalist system, discussing the nature of commodities, labor, and the capitalist mode of production. He introduces key concepts such as the labor theory of value, surplus value, and the inevitability of capitalism's downfall. History of Marxist theory. So it rooted in the mid-19th century through the works of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Has undergone significant transformation and expansion over time. So initially focused on critiques of capitalism and class struggle, it evolved through various intellectual and political phases. So the early 20th century saw the formalization of Marxist principles in political movements, while the 1930s and 1940s brought Soviet Marxism and socialist realism to the forefront. So the mid 20th century introduced Western Marxism and the Frankfurt School, which challenged Soviet orthodoxy and expanded Marxist theory into cultural and ideological realms. So the late 20th and early 21st centuries witnessed the integration of Marxism with structuralism, post structuralism, and other critical approaches, leading to a diverse range of interpretation and application in a global context. So, this evolution reflects Marxism's adaptability and its ongoing relevance in analyzing contemporary social and economic issues. What is Marxist criticism? It is a literary theory that examines literature through the lens of Marxist theory, which focuses on the economic and social forces that shape society. This approach emphasizes the role of class struggle, economic factors, and social inequality in the creation and interpretation of literary works. So Marxist critics often analyze how literature reflects, reinforces, or critiques the class structure and ideologies of its time, and they explore how texts may challenge or support a dominant and social economic systems. Marxist theory, society is divided into two main components, the base and the superstructure. So, base refers to the economic foundation of society, including the mode of production or how goods and services are produced, and the relations of production or the relationships between different social classes involved in production. So, the base determines the economic structure and influences how resources are allocated and wealth is distributed. So it essentially shapes the material conditions of life. The superstructure consists of the cultural, ideological, and institutional aspects of society, such as art, religion, education, and legal systems. So the superstructure arises from and reflects the base, but also serves to maintain and legitimize the existing economic system. So it encompasses the beliefs, values, and norms that are prevalent in society and helps to shape individuals' consciousness and social behavior. Marxist criticism is a critical approach that interprets literature and other forms of art in terms of socio-economic class struggle, power dynamics, and material conditions. Reflect class struggle. They analyze how different social classes are portrayed and how conflicts between these classes drive the narrative. So this involves identifying which characters belong to the working class or proletariat, the middle class, and the ruling class or bourgeoisie, and examining how their relationships are defined by economic power, wealth, and social status. So, proletariat or the working class, they do not own the means of production and must sell their labor to survive. So they produce goods and services but receive only a fraction of the value they create, with the surplus value being extracted by the bourgeoisie. So, middle class, often referred to as the petite bourgeoisie in Marxist terms. So this class includes small business owners, professionals, and managers who own some means of production but do not have the same level of economic power as the bourgeoisie. So their possession can be precarious as they may be affected by the broader economic dynamics that favor the larger uh, capitalist class. So bourgeoisie, they own and control the means of production. So they benefit from the surplus value created by the proletariat and have significant economic and political power. So the bourgeoisie's control over production and resources allows them to shape society's economic and ideological frameworks in their favor. So, in Marxist analysis, the relationship between these classes is characterized by conflict, particularly between the proletariat and bourgeoisie, driven by the exploitation inherent in the capitalist system. So, in many texts, the narrative tension or conflict is driven by class struggle. Conflicts over resources, power, and control. So Marxist critics might explore how the text illustrates the ways in which the ruling class exploits the working class or how the working class resists this exploitation. Second, reinforce or challenge ideologies. So they look at whether a text supports the dominant ideology. So the set of beliefs, values, and norms that benefits the ruling class or critiques and challenges that ideology. So the ideology is often invisible and taken for granted, but it shapes how people think, and act. So some texts may reinforce the status quo by presenting the existing social order as natural, just, and inevitable. So, for instance, a story that depicts wealth as a result of hard work and poverty as a consequence of laziness may be seen as reinforcing capitalist ideologies that justify economic inequality. So other texts might question or subvert the dominant ideology by portraying it as unjust or highlighting the suffering it causes. So a novel that depicts the harsh working conditions and exploitation of the laboring class may serve as a critic of capitalist ideology and call for social change. So Marxist then third, reveal material conditions. So they examine how a text reflects the material conditions such as economic, social, and political realities of the time in which it was produced. So this means understanding how the historical context and the economic structure of society shape the themes, characters, and conflicts in a text. So Marxist critics look at how the economic conditions of a particular period, such as poverty, unemployment, industrialization, colonialism, etc., influence the behavior, values, and actions of characters. So they also consider how these conditions impact the production and reception of the text itself. So the material conditions, um, like the state of the economy, the distribution of wealth, and access to resources, are often mirrored in the settings, plots, and character interactions. Texts might expose the disparities between the wealthy and the poor, or depict the effects of economic changes on society. So Marxist criticism uses these three approaches to uncover how literature and art reflect, reinforce, or challenge the underlying socio-economic realities and ideologies of their time. So it provides how texts are shaped by and contribute to the broader struggles over power, wealth, and class in society.
How to use Marxist criticism. Marxist criticism analyzes literature through the lens of class struggle and socio-economic factors. So, Marxist criticism is a method of analyzing text and cultural artifacts which focuses on the relationship between economic structures and social power dynamics. So it is examines how class struggle, alienation, and ideology shape the content and meaning of a work. So here's a 5-step on how to use Marxist criticism. So first is to identify class relations. So examine characters based on social class and power dynamics. A key aspect of this approach is to identifying and examining the class relations depicted within a text. It is used how characters, actions, and the relationships between a text reflect the power dynamics and inequalities that inherent in a class-based society. So identifying the characters or groups who represent the bourgeoisie, which is the owning class that it characterizes the wealthy and power in the text, and the proletariat, which is the working class that it characterizes of lack of wealth. So number 2, contextualize the text. It is considered the historical and economic backdrop of the work. So it is uncover the underlying social and economic forces. So Marx believed that all human societies are shaped by the ways people produce and exchange goods. So we need to understand the economic system in which it was created. Contextualization allows us to identify the class dynamics, power relations, and social inequalities that are often embedded in a text. For example, if you're analyzing a novel set in 19th century, knowing about the Industrial Revolution, the rise of factories, and the growing gap between the wealthy and the poor people will help you understand the characters' motivations, conflicts, and the author's perspective. So without contextualization, you might simply see it as a story about hardship. But if you know that the story is set in a time of rapid industrialization and widespread poverty, you can see the deeper message. The authors might be commenting on the consequences of capitalism or the need for social change. So number 3, analyze ideology. So, to effectively employ the Marxist criticism through the lens of ideology, you must first understand how ideology functions in shaping societal norms and values. Um, Marxist criticism offers a powerful lens for understanding how societal norms and values are shaped, particularly by focusing on the interplay between economic forces in social structures. It argues that these elements are not independent but rather interconnected. With the economic base, it is exerting a significant influence on the superstructure, which includes culture, politics, and ideology. So number 4 is critic capitalism. So it is explored the representation of capitalism's effects on human relationship and individual identity. It argues that capitalism is inherently exploitative, with the bourgeoisie extracting surplus value for the proletariat's labor. So it is highlights the power imbalance and inequalities inherent in a capitalist system. So number 5, draw contemporary parallels. Related themes to modern issues like income, inequality, or labor rights, reinforcing the relevance of Marxist criticism today. To draw contemporary parallels, it provides relevant statistics about income inequality, poverty rates, or labor conditions in your society to illustrate the parallels. So it connects the themes of the text to current events such as protests against economic injustice, labor strikes, or political debates about wealth redistribution, and also to share your own observations or experiences with economic inequality or social injustice, drawing connections to the text. So the next is the Marxist criticism's limitations. So we have first limitations of binary thinking. So the use of binary opposition in this literature is a system that authors use to explore differences between groups of individuals such as cultural, class, or gender differences. So here the authors may explore between the two groups and what can result from those perceived differences. So binary thinking ignores the interaction or social forces. It doesn't take into account how class, gender, race, and other social factors affect individual experiences and choices. So it would say that binary view of a novel life, pride and prejudice might only focus on the rich versus the poor, and not on the complex combination of social expectations, gender rules, and economic situations that actually influence characters' behaviors. So the next is value of class analysis. Class analysis is a valuable tool for understanding the dynamics of power and inequality in society, but it should be applied with caution and nuance and literary criticism. The comprehensive analysis should consider the full range of themes, characters, and literary devices within a work. So it is recognizing that class is just one element in a complex social and artistic landscape. So next is beyond oversimplification. So, oversimplification often leads to misunderstandings, biases, and inaccurate conclusions. By going beyond oversimplification, we can develop a more informed, nuanced, and accurate understanding of the world around us. So, the key reminders. So, first we have class conflict. So it is analyze characters and plots for representation of class struggles. So class conflict is a central theme in literature, reflecting the social and economic divisions within a society. So the characters and plots of the representation of class struggles provides valuable insights into the power dynamics, social hierarchies, and human experiences associated with different classes. So next is economic forces. So consider how economic conditions influence narratives and authorial intent. So economic conditions significantly influence narratives and authorial intent. So they shape the themes, settings, and characters in a story. So for example, during times of economic hardship, so the authors may focus on the themes of poverty, inequality, and social injustice. So as seen in the works of Charles Dickens and John Steinbeck. So economic prosperity, on the other hand, may lead the story exploring themes of ambition, success, and pursuit of wealth. So historical content. It is recognized the impact of historical materialism on societal values and literature. It has led to a focus on the representation of class conflict in literature, with authors often using their works to critique economic systems and advocate for social justice. So it is historical materialism has encouraged a critical examinations of societal values, prompting us to question the role of economic structures and shaping our beliefs, ideologies, and cultural practices. So that's all for my part, and thank you.
Hello everyone, we are now down to our last discussion, which is the application of Marxist criticism on a literary piece. And we will be using Guy de Maupassant's short story The Necklace through the lens of Marxist criticism. I think everyone is familiar with this literary piece and some of you had already read this piece on our previous subject. But allow me to show you the summary of the piece for you to recall this story. Using Marxist criticism, it will help us to understand the class dynamics, materialism, and societal structures depicted in this story. Before we start, our previous reporter had provided us a step-by-step guide for applying this framework. So the following steps are: first, identify class relations; second, contextualize the text; third, analyze the ideology; fourth, critique capitalism; fifth, draw contemporary parallels. We will be using these steps to apply Marxist criticism using the necklace as our primary example. So let's get started. So the first step is to examine the characters based on their social class and power dynamics. In the necklace, Mathilde Loisel is a middle-class woman who desires to live a life of luxury. Her husband is a modest clerk representing the working class. And Mathilde's dissatisfaction with her middle-class status highlights the rigid class divisions of the time. Madame Forrester, on the other hand, embodies the wealthy class enjoying ease and luxury. Matilda's obsession with wealth and social status underscores her frustration with her lower middle class position and the perceived barrier it creates between her and the affluent life she yearns for. This disparity demonstrates the social satisfaction and class conflict which is central to Marxist criticism. As you can observe in the first paragraph, it introduces the key themes such as class, materialism, societal structures, and the main characters to establish the context of Marxist analysis. So this paragraph lays the foundation of a Marxist reading by setting up the characters and their relationships within a class-based society. Contextualize the text. To fully understand the Marxist critique, we need to consider the historical and economic backdrop of the story. The Necklace was written in the late 19th century, a period marked by industrialization and rising capitalism in Europe. So this era saw a growing divide between the wealthy bourgeoisie class and the working poor. So, this story critiques this divide by showcasing Matilda's obsession with material wealth and her belief that luxury equates with happiness. Moreover, her dissatisfaction reflects the social and economic tensions of the time, as the story addresses the inequalities and class struggles that were prevalent during this period. In the second paragraph, it provides historical and economic context to ground the story in the late 19th century capitalist society. So, this contextualization helps us readers to understand how the story reflects the economic tensions of the time and serve as a critique of these conditions. The third step is to analyze the ideology. Next, we have to investigate how these ideologies are presented and challenged in the story. Marxist criticism often explores how dominant ideologies, such as the belief in material wealth as a source of happiness, are portrayed and questioned. So, in the necklace, Matilda's belief that wealth and luxury are essential for a fulfilling life represents the bourgeoisie's obsession with materialism. Her downfall, working for years to repay a debt for a necklace that turns out to be fake, challenges the notion that material possessions bring true happiness. Thus, this revelation critiques the ideologies that promote wealth as a means to personal fulfillment and exposes the hollowness of these values. As you can observe in the third paragraph, it analyzes how the dominant ideologies of materialism is portrayed and critiqued in the story. The fourth step is to critique capitalism. So, in the necklace, Matilda's pursuit of wealth strains her marriage and reveals how capitalist values can reduce personal relationships to mere transactions. Matilda's and her husband's are dramatically altered by their attempt to maintain appearances. So the story illustrates how capitalism traps individuals in cycles of debt and exploitation, which emphasizing the detrimental impact of economic forces on personal well-being and relationships. So, in the fourth paragraph, it involves exploring the effects of capitalism on human relationships and individuals' identity. This paragraph emphasizes the destructive impact of capitalism on personal well-being and relationships reinforced in the Marxist critique. The last step is to draw contemporary parallels. By drawing parallels between the story and contemporary issues, we see how Marxist criticism provides a critical perspective on ongoing economic and social challenges. It serves as a reminder of the destructive effects of prioritizing wealth over well-being and the importance of understanding economic and social systems in shaping individual and collective experiences. It ties the analysis back to the present, demonstrating the ongoing relevance of Marxist criticism in understanding the economic and social systems. In this paragraph, we can relate the themes of the story to modern issues. The critique of materialism and class conflict in the necklace remains relevant today. Issues like income inequality, the pursuit of material wealth, and the impact of capitalism on human relationships are still pertinent. In conclusion of it, applying Marxist criticism to the necklace involves analyzing class relations, contextualizing the text historically, investigating ideological representations, critiquing capitalism's impact, and drawing contemporary parallels. It is not just a tale of lost jewelry, but a profound commentary on class, economic conditions, and the societal values that shapes our lives. Through the lens of Marxist criticism, we can see how the story critiques the superficial pursuit of wealth and the consequences it brings. I hope that this will help you in applying Marxist criticism in other literary works. Thank you for watching.